am the Divine David, assisted by J. Cloth, my avant-guardian angel. We seek to help people with problems within Manchester and absolve them. Tonight, we dedicate our program to a great artist. Hello, Walter. How do you do?
Thank you very much for coming. Yes.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes.
I'm the Divine David. This is Greg Cloth.
Yes.
And we've come to see your mural and the work that you've been doing.
Fine.
Walter was commissioned to paint a mural and then told to stop. This is the completed. This is the whole painting.
This is the basic design for the mural. It's quite large, actually. The title of the mural is called Manchester Windows, and it traces the history of Manchester through these contemporary screens.
So, Walter, could you tell me, please, who commissioned the mural?
Yes. Well, I was commissioned by the Arndale Centre, who's owned by the Prudential, and also in connection with Bovis and P&O, who are all big national companies. And they said, go ahead and paint a big mural to cover that rather ugly space on the Arndale Centre. Do a mural to last for about 3 years prior to us redeveloping that last remaining part that was damaged by the bomb.
Yeah. And how much time did they give you to do that?
Well, they gave us about 4 months to do it.
Not long?
Not long, so it was imperative that we started straight away, priming the panels, cutting them to size. Each panel has actually been drilled in the corner to fix, in the centres, so they all match up. They're all numbered on the back. There's 240 of them.
Wow.
And out of the blue, we've been on it for about 5 weeks, the design, painting.
Working away.
Stop.
Yeah.
Just a message on an answer phone saying, stop painting.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
How can they do that? And how can they sort of believe that they can release that much creative energy and then sort of, you know, start it and then just stop it with such a casual attitude?
Of course. People in Britain have a very strange attitude towards art, don't
yes,
they? You know what I mean?
So.
They see it as a threat. I mean, the equivalent is to, if you can imagine, say, Fay Weldon or Germaine Greer, given the money, start the book, start the novel, the writing away.
Yes.
They've got into it for about 5 weeks. They're up to chapter 12 or whatever, however they work, I'm not presuming.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden stop. We're having advertisements instead.
No.
Or Pavarotti's halfway through an aria.
Yeah.
And they stop, we're having advertising jingles.
It sounds like somebody's being sort of quite whimsical.
Yeah.
We'll commission an artist and then we'll take away the commission. And it's a very cavalier way to treat somebody and very disrespectful.
Well, unfortunately for them, they're dealing with the wrong person.
Absolutely. Well, you've got enormous willpower.
Absolutely. Determined, absolutely determined, you see.
Fantastic.
In face of all form of political correctness or...
and all the silly bureaucracy.
Democracy in action, bureaucracy or Millennium Commissions.
Yeah. Well, Walter, I think I'd like to sort of tour around and have a look at the mural in all the various sections. If you could show me around, that would be lovely.
Yes. It occupies a huge space. Take your shoes off.
Yes. I don't want to make any indentations.
When we get to final coats, we actually put knee pads on. If we're painting, we put knee pads on and we put big woolly socks on, you know, those sort of mountaineering type of socks. Yes. And then you can slide about on them. But normally you can walk about on it because it is actually household paint.
Yeah.
In here I've tried to get some sort of expressive painting. This is based on sort of the lovely ferns and colours that you get in the original waters cascading down from Ashton, Oldham, Pennines, Bolton, coming down through Stone. So you get these wonderful colours of autumn type of colours here.
And the fertility and the verdance.
Yes.
You know.
This is another detail. The basic design is still here. The pencil marks are in.
Yes.
The guidelines for the perspective. But it represents an Accrington-built Accrington Brick built mill. They were
Right,
put up all
yeah.
over Lancashire
I'm very
in those
familiar with
early
Accrington
days.
brick.
Yeah.
I grew up surrounded with Accrington brick.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful
Wonderful.
colour. So when you're finished with it, what will you do? Present it to them?
I don't know what I'm going to do with it, quite frankly, because it's a specific size for that particular wall.
Uh-huh.
And the building that it would have to go on would have to be a similar size.
Yes.
I don't know what to say, really. I've
Yeah.
not really thought about it because I haven't had time. I'm just too busy painting it.
It's
Yeah.
such a shame for Manchester that this has happened. It's embarrassing, really, to sort of, I mean, I love Manchester, but to actually be living in a city that this could be allowed to happen, that somebody be commissioned to make a huge original artwork and then told to you know, to stop.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I know consultation with you, no acknowledgement that you could be upset or annoyed by it, and I'm sure you must be very annoyed by
Fuming,
it.
absolutely fuming, hopping mad.
Yeah.
Right at the end of the day, even with Gillian here, we've worked every single day. We've worked bank holidays, worked Saturdays and Sundays. We've done something on it every single day, simply because it's imperative that this is finished. You know, there wasn't a lot of time. The job is enormous. You've got to do it all
massive,
the time.
isn't it?
Yeah. So at the beginning of the day, I can hardly wait to get here to start. At the end of the day, I'm hopping mad. I'm fuming.
Yes.
You know, I'm saying, you know, things I probably shouldn't say to myself, getting myself really
What,
upset.
like?
And things like, I could rub their faces in it, you know, I could, you know, absolutely fuming. And I'm thinking about the young lads that help with it, Jill, that has to suffer my temperamental art moods. You know, as artists, we know these things.
Oh, yeah, well, everything has to be sort of collaborative, and people have to be quite understanding, don't they, at times? But I'd say with your anger, I do think anger's an energy, and it's as well, perhaps the alchemy is to turn the negative into positive. It would have been very easy for you to just, I don't know, just sort of put your brushes down and forget about it, but that's not you, and it's not in your nature.
No, I couldn't do that. I couldn't waste all the paint. I couldn't waste the plywood.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was asked to do the job. It's got to be finished, doesn't it?
Resources, aren't
they?
Yeah.
Right.
Fantastic. Then off we go. Well, Walter, I wanted to tell you that Jay and I would travel down from Manchester to the Tate Gallery to have a preview of the Turner Prize nominations. And whilst we were down there, we actually handed out works that we'd done ourselves in pencil or paint, some abstract, some figurative, trying to keep everybody happy. And we were handing them out, and people were very delighted to take them because they had something tangible, some tangible art. And it was good, I think, somebody coming from the north of England to go down there and not only be generous, handing out art, not charging for it, you know, but to try and put Manchester artistically on the map, you know.
Yes. You were saying there were video installations
Very
or
much
something?
so. Yeah, that seems to be, I think it's very trend-based, the Turner Prize, really. So it looks like this year they're pushing photography and video and installation and that sort of thing.
You notice a lot of contemporary art, recent Turner, it's concept art, isn't it? You know, the concept of a sliced animal or the concept of a bed, really.
Yeah.
And it's the artist as a dilettante, you know. It's, oh, I had a concept, as though anybody else in the right mind, oh, you can have a million concepts per week.
Well, I've always been able to see the sculptural richness of a meat and potato pie, you know. I mean, it's not that sort of an original idea, is it? That everything is art, and, you know, the bird, the unmade bird, I suppose the light and shade and all that sort of palaver. Of course, it's a 3D sculptures and everything, you know, so what?
Yeah. You went to the Edinburgh Festival this year to do performances, yeah?
Actually, the shoes bear testimony, because we ended every show by doing a huge painting, and of course some of the paint flew off, you know, and it's built up.
This beautiful encrusted
Exactly,
layer.
and it's cheered up, just a plain old black pair of stilettos, you know, and it's given them a bit of a kick, you know, and like yourself, I'm interested in expressionism.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I like
It's
that.
almost like a detail from a Jackson Pollock. Although when you see Jackson Pollocks, they tend to be on a pale surface with an encrusted area of
Yeah.
paint.
Yeah.
Whereas on black, it just adds an extra dimension to it, doesn't
Definitely.
it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There were
I'm very
some
happy with those
really
shoes.
expressive painters in the 1950s in Paris. Pierre Soulages comes to mind, and he was a precursor of Mark Rothko, the big
Oh, yes.
famous American painter, but he did really heavy impasto work. And another painter called Nicholas de Stael that worked basically with a palette knife, using lovely rich colours on vibrant skies, beach
Gorgeous.
scenes, and
Yeah.
jazz musicians, and various other aspects.
And
But
I would imagine very involved in his work and probably no time for counselling.
no time for counselling.
Fantastic. Yeah. I've already made a connection between this work and, say, Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel because of the
Yes,
scale of
scale,
it.
yes.
But also, you've got the schoolboys, stroke artisans, you've got Gillian helping, and it's a communal act that's
Yeah,
going on.
It is. Yes.
And amazing that you're passing on skills to, younger people.
Yes.
And keeping these skills.
Tradition
and-
going, yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Well, the boys, they have learned the technical skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And beautiful and very generous that you pass on your skills to keep them alive is just wonderful. And you also work in collaboration with Gillian.
Yes.
How does that work? Because I'm very impressed with people who love together and work together,
Yes,
is
absolutely.
quite an amazing combination.
Yes. Well, Gillian and myself, we've been painting murals together for the past 5 years, and we always have these little, they're only tiffs about. Gillian likes to draw the figures
Right.
and the horses, and she says, "Oh, you draw the architecture, Walter, don't you, Gillian?" and we
I'm
both
inclined
want to paint the
towards the figurative
horses, but
myself. Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's good. I think what Jill's done, she's scaled up the horse from preliminary studies like this, which is twice the height of a double-decker bus. It only looks small here.
Yeah.
The
If he was
horse's
galloping towards you, you'd
the
know
horse's
about it,
head is
wouldn't
10 feet high. It's
Yeah.
as tall as this ceiling, really.
Incredible.
And Jill, what she's doing now, she's actually blending the light and dark on the
you? Right, on the floor.
horse's
that's it.
legs
Yeah.
together, you see. And when the paint's blended, if it's still wet, you get these wonderful three-dimensional modelling effects.
Yeah. Well, there is a
Yeah.
very sculptural quality to it all, and textures as well. It encapsulates everything within painting,
Yes.
and on such an amazing scale.
Yes.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And a tragedy if it's not to be shown for what it was intended to be, a public
Work of art.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and
Yes.
it's a tragedy, and it's been a privilege to meet you and to cover this problem that people have had, and it almost justifies television.
Yes.
Because I think people should be aware of all this effort and all this beauty that is going to be denied the people of Manchester and the visitors to Manchester.
Yeah.
So we wish you all the very best.
Yes, thank you very much.
Join us in part 2, when we take Walter's problem to Manchester City Council. Here we are at the Manchester home of truth, justice and democracy. Look at all this, the architecture of civic power. Come on, Jay, be ready to write down every word they say. I wonder if this way leads to someone in power. Listen to my stilettos echoing in the corridors of power, ringing in their ears. I'm sick of Manchester City Council. Poor Walter. All that artistic expression gone to waste. Surely they can do something to help. Well, Councillor Kath Robinson, Deputy Leader of nothing, what have you got to say for yourself?
Are you familiar with an artist called Walter Kershaw?
I am.
At all? Yeah,
Yes.
beautiful. Well, I've seen the maquette of his mural for the city centre. Absolutely breathtaking. Both Jay and I think it's a masterpiece.
Do you really?
Ah. Have
I've
you not seen it?
I've only seen pictures of it in the...
Yeah, apparently it was commissioned by the Arndale people
Yes, it
and the
was.
various corporations
So I believe.
that prop up that particular organisation. But a few weeks into the project, they rang him up and told him to not bother and not carry on with the mural.
Yes, I read that.
Yeah, yeah. Is there nothing the City Council can do about that? Bearing in mind your love of art, you know.
Would we want to do anything about it, is what you're asking me, really, isn't it?
Well, you know, I mean, either or. I mean, if you want to help out,
well,
then you will help out, won't you?
If we wanted to help out, we would help out, yes.
Yeah.
It depends on what powers we have to help out in certain instances. In this particular case, I haven't seen the mural. I've seen a copy of it, in a bit of
Yeah.
it in the evening news. I don't know.
Very interesting work. It's a masterpiece, really. It tells the history of Manchester, well over 1,000 years, right from the Roman remains going into the Industrial Revolution, the embracing of technology. I felt that I was in the presence of somebody who believes in art and communicates through art. Whilst I was with him, there were two young lads helping him with the project, and he was giving them skills that ordinarily they wouldn't have.
All the way along, blend it up, and then Tom, you're painting down here and up there, aren't you? So when you get in the middle, both use your brushes to blend your paint together.
Right, yeah.
Okay?
And it was a joy to see an older person passing on these wonderful talents and abilities that Walter has. But it just seems a tragedy that apparently that picture isn't hanging in the city centre.
Well, if it's not to hang in the city centre and it's as wonderful as you say it is, it will
Yeah.
hang somewhere eventually, won't it?
Got nowhere with that one, then.
I was just going to speak about poetry,
Yes.
because a fellow performer and artist, Chloe Poems, did a poem this year at the Mardi Gras, which was 4 days, I believe, of sort of disco divas and boy bands, that sort of thing. And Chloe had a designated 10 minutes to perform a poem which was of a political nature. And he did get castigated for performing that particular poem from, well, in fact, from some people who are members of the City Council, which, again, I found a little bit disappointing, bearing in mind its radical tradition and its radical heritage.
I didn't hear the poem, so
Yeah.
I can't comment, and I've not heard anybody criticise. And again, I think it's a matter of taste. If somebody did criticise, I'm sure it wasn't officially on behalf of the City Council, and that's...
But it was a dissenting voice and a radical voice, and somebody articulated and worked hard on an artistic expression, and should really have been, I believe, encouraged, and, you know, that person's existence should be celebrated. I'm just wondering why people go to school and come out of school having no knowledge of their own bodies, and they come out of school with prejudices against other people, be they of a racial nature or about sexuality. Why is it that people go into the education system and still manage to come out seething with prejudice and bigotry, and why hate crimes are seemingly on the rise? Isn't this to do with the education system?
I think that's a big question,
to do
don't
with
you?
the
I think that's
education
a
system?
lot wider than the education system. I think the education system has a very big role to play in all that.
I mean,
but I think
it
it's
strikes
much
me as
wider than that.
divide and rule, really. You know, when people are encouraged to sort of see differences in each other rather than acknowledge and embrace a person's inherent humanity.
But aren't differences something to celebrate? And it's not that you shouldn't see differences in people, it's that the differences are the things that we share with each other, that we learn from each other, that make us better people.
How are you,
give us a
how are you
broader
different to me?
spectrum of life.
Kath, how are you different
Am
to
I
me?
different to you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm older. We've probably got different backgrounds. We've probably had different education. And also we've probably got different life experiences that if we have the opportunity to share, we probably learn something
I'm not
from
being
each
rude,
other.
but all the things that you've just said there, to me, are totally irrelevant. I think that I've got a lot in common with you. To put it simplistically, you know, I sort of sleep, I eat, I go to the toilet, occasionally I might fall in love, blah, blah, blah. And then the big one, the big unifying thing that we've all got in common is that we're all going to die. So why don't we sort of really make the most of our time and our talents to make the world a better place? Why is it that Tony Blair and all the people either at Westminster or even in local government, nobody is standing up and taking on the British armaments trade? Why? Why is the British armaments trade going from strength to strength? Crocodile tears from Tony Blair vis-a-vis Kosovo or East Timor, when we know for a fact that those weapons are actually either manufactured here or distributed from here. The British armaments trade is literally making a killing. And I want to know, as a Manchester person, living in a city who I've always been very proud that Manchester was the first place to declare itself a nuclear-free zone. So why can't we now, as a city, lead the rest of the country in exposing and acknowledging where the wealth of this country comes from? And it does come from the armaments trade, we know this. And why can't people like Tony Blair, who pretend to care about the families, pretend to care about education, how can you really care about nurturing when you're prepared to turn the blind eye to weapons of mass destruction? You know, I mean, if Sherry Blair was to sort of fall into the hands of some of the animals that have been working in Kosovo, she'd be in a pretty bad shape, as his children would if they were in East Timor. So I don't understand why he can't connect himself as a human with these people around the world, why he can't sort of think, well, I'm glad I'm not sort of living in Kosovo, I'm glad I'm not in East Timor. What's it all about?
I personally
So
totally
keep
agree
it
with
going
you.
because there's a lot of money
No,
going in it.
that's not my argument.
No,
I'm
good.
saying those are the arguments that are being put by other people. And I agree with you entirely. Somebody has to do something about it.
So that was a waste of time then. I thought politicians could discuss politics, but obviously I was wrong. Walter, the armaments trade, someone has got to do something about it, but we need a social revolution, not a man in makeup.